Happy March's Reading Month, gamers. Welcome to the Two Schmoes Show, the only show on the internet where we have no child labor breaks and violations, and we can prove it.
Not that we have to declare.
Not that we have to declare. My name's the infamous Orion, and I am a schmo.
My name's Cairo, and I am also a schmo.
And this is the Two Schmoes Show. How are you doing, Mr. Cairo? I know it's been a kind of a wacky week.
It has been. It's not been too bad though. Yeah, I can't complain. We had I don't know, the weather's been kind of shitty.
It's been kind
I'll
of
say
shitty.
that.
Living in Michigan right now, as great as it is, we're getting like a fucking winter storm every week lately, and it's always on the weekend. It's always on the fucking weekend. What the fuck is it with that?
It's March.
Yeah.
What the hell? We did have that really cool like harvest moon though earlier in the week, so that was nice.
That was a really pretty moon.
It was really clear out for that, so I can't complain.
What have you been doing to keep yourself occupied this week, Mr. Cairo?
Oh boy, I've been actually going on a bit of a like movie watching spree this last 2 weeks. We'll talk more about it later, but I have sort of first impressions of Banshees of Inisherin. It's a good movie, deserves the awards it got for sure. Also watched 2001 for the first time.
You've never seen 2001 before?
No. Nope.
You can't hear it, but I'm blinking like rapidly right now.
It is, I don't know, to me it kind of confirmed my preconceived biases against it, where it is absolutely influential, probably the most influential science fiction, but it's also a movie from the 60s and it shows.
I had a coworker once say this, and it encompasses all my feelings about the movie. It is a movie you won't regret watching, but you'll probably only watch it once.
Yep, that's fair. The online discourse about it is so out there, where I had to like do so many double takes. I'm trying to like it's a movie that I've of course heard about in everywhere, because it has been so influential in how sci-fi is presented in film. But there are so many people that to this day still call it the best science fiction movie. And I find that to be such a wild description of it.
I wouldn't call it the best science fiction movie. It's more artsy. So good science fiction cannot be that artsy, in my opinion. And sorry?
I say it wrote the book for how science fiction should look, but in terms of telling a story, it's kind of shit.
There's no story in that movie. Like, it's a series of events, and there's a plot, but there's no story.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this as a Kubrick fan. Stanley Kubrick, the director, one of my all-time favorites. I fucking love that man to death. But I will also be the first to say, yeah, it's not exactly a movie most people can watch more than once.
Yeah, and you just don't really need to. Even if you're doing like critical analysis of it, it's the way that it's structured makes pretty much all of it very isolated. And even if you're trying to do an analysis of it, you don't need to rewatch the whole thing multiple times. You can just focus in on the area that you're analyzing, and it is pretty contained to itself.
Really, it's a movie that's told in like 3 parts.
Yeah, 3 or 4 for sure.
Yeah. I would definitely say each act of the film, because it does follow like what I consider to be a traditional 3-act structure. Set up, I say the payoff is the second act, and then the third act is just kind of like all over the place.
We have a lava lamp and we want everyone to know it.
I'm not like the other movies. My images go brrr.
Yeah. The other thing that I did though, I have now over like the last 3 weeks, I have watched all of the Fast and the Furious movies and all of the Mission Impossible movies again, because I find their trajectories absolutely fascinating. where these are like multi-film franchises that have both been around. They started at almost the exact same time. They have had a very similar release cadence, but the measure of quality between them is so disparate. It is such a gap in how they ended up.
Interesting, interesting. You know, I've never seen a Fast and Furious movie, and I'm kind of too afraid to start watching them at this point.
I don't. There are some good ones for sure. The first one, like I can go through it real quick. The first and third one are good if you enjoy like cars and car culture. They're very heavy into those elements of, street racing and the cool cars and the hot girls and all that kind of shit. And they're fun as a sort of like time capsule of that time period and how car culture was then. But in terms of larger action movies, they don't have all that much action. All the action is just like people racing. And if you like that, it's cool, but it's kind of limited in that scope.
Okay, okay.
The
I'm not a car guy.
Yeah, if you're not a car guy, I highly recommend Hobbs and Shaw because it's just The Rock and Jason Statham being their sort of archetypical characters and fucking around fighting Idris Elba. It is silly, over the top action, and it is perfect for that.
That does sound ridiculously stupid and silly, and I'm kind of
It is just so much fun. But it does completely get rid of all of the cars and street racing angle entirely. Part of this, I watched Fast 9 for the first time, though. What a movie that is.
How so good, sir?
It is, would you believe in Fast 9, the big, plot twist that has completely upended the Fast universe is that Vin Diesel has a secret brother that is played by John Cena.
What the fuck? Is this like some kind of like film writer's like wet dream for like getting a hit in China?
I don't know. Probably. But it does not sell it. That's the big thing for me though. That's like the difference between these two franchises. They're both big budget, summer blockbuster, lots of action, explosions, big name actors. But because Tom Cruise is such a psychopath, all of the stunt work in the Mission Impossible movies is, for the most part, just him doing it. And it looks really impressive for it. And then you compare that to Fast and Furious movies, and so much of it looks so fucking bad. It's like they can't find a middle ground of good enough. They're either doing really cool shit that looks really cool, or they're trying to do really cool shit and it looks like ass.
That's kind of hilarious.
Yeah. There is some of the worst CG I've seen in a movie released in the last decade is in Fast 9. It's really bad. Almost impressively bad.
I was rewatching Glass Onion with my girlfriend last night, and without spoiling anything, 'cause you haven't seen it, correct?
No, I haven't.
There's a CGI car part, and it's played as a joke, because it's like a stunt that's so incredibly expensive to pull off. It's just cheaper to do it with CGI. That is why I would consider the worst CGI of all time. It is just an absolutely shit show of a vehicle, like how they did it. Does not look real at all, but you forgive it because it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for the first time in a while, we have like actual news this week.
It's like politics was waiting, and they like started up with a new season.
And just bam, bam, bam. Everybody's off spring break now, and they're ready to go.
Do we want to start with the good stuff, aka Michigan, or are we going to go right to why the South is a dirty cesspool?
I would like to start with the second largest bank collapse since the Great Depression,
Oh
because
shit.
it is so dramatic. It's like this is perfect news because it sounds so dramatic and so serious, but the reality is so boring.
It really is one of those stories where the headlines are way better than the content itself.
Absolutely. So, big news of this week, uh financial speaking at least, is that the Silicon Valley Bank, who is the 16th largest bank in the US. And if you're not in the West Coast, you'd be forgiven for not knowing who the hell they are. The good explanation that I heard in terms of their scale is that the 17th largest bank in the US is Fifth Third,
Mm, hmm.
which is, I think, a much more
Recognizable name.
nationally
Yeah.
known, at least. It gives a good perspective of how much scale SVB has. Going back to 2019, SVB, the Silicon Valley Bank, had been a bank for tech startups for a long time. And as a result, these tech startups who had been banking with them for a long time typically used them as a sort of venture capital storehouse, where this is just the bank where they go, where they get their venture capital. This is where they store it. And from 2019 to 2021, we had this massive explosion in the tech sector where venture capital was being thrown around. Places were hiring like crazy. And that resulted in the money kept at SVB ballooning from $62 billion in 2019 all the way up to nearly $200 billion by the end of 2021. Practically tripled in 2 years, which is obviously unprecedented. Not unprecedented, but it's not common. That's very atypical, and it was a direct result of the type of clientele that they catered to. As we've seen in the last 6 months or so, the tech sector is not doing great. We've had mass layoffs from the likes of Google, Twitter, obviously, although they have their own unique problems. But Google and Microsoft, Apple, pretty much across the board, places are cutting staff that they picked up while the tech sector was booming. They don't need them now. They're sort of going into a bit of a recession, and they are hedging against that by reducing staff and their overhead.
It's really weird to see, like, because I fe- it's so weird because how do I put this? Growing up, these tech companies were kind of like the giants for us because that's all we
Mm-hmm.
knew at the time. I mean, obviously, every
Yep.
kid grew up watching fucking iPods like blow up
Mm-hmm.
on the scene, at least our
Oh
age
no.
group. So it's so weird to me to see these big companies like laying off people and not expanding for fucking once in their life. Um, it really does feel like an end of an era to me.
Yeah. Yep. As a part of that, a lot of these companies are requiring access to their funds that they would typically just hold and leave as investment pots, and they need them. And because they have these holdings with SVB, SVB is who they're going to, saying, "Hey, we need this money left. When can you get it to us?" Because when you're talking about the kinds of money that these companies are doing, this is in the scale of billions of dollars. Um, it is not something that you can just snap your fingers and magically get this cash. And it requires a bit of an understanding of how banks work to appreciate what led to SVB's collapse. Because banks don't have some Scrooge McDuckian big vault that's just full of cash and gold, right? They keep some amount of assets like that on hand that are either just straight cash or things that can be almost immediately turned over into cash. Things like stocks. Stock is a really good example of that, where they buy tons of stocks up rather than holding on to cash itself. And then the stock appreciates in value. They keep a portion of it, and they can readily sell it when they need to in order to fulfill any sort of withdrawals that their customers have. Everybody wins. You store your money with them, you get a little bit of interest off of it, the bank makes their money from it. It's all good.
Yeah.
SVB grew so fast in 2019 to 2021 that they ran out of those easy options to put the money that was being deposited with them into, and they had to resort to not necessarily riskier investments, but investments that are meant for longer terms. In particular, they bought into a bunch of 10-year housing bonds, with the idea being that these housing bonds are relatively stable and over a long period of time, they'll make a lot of money because of them. But if you have to sell them early, you lose out on almost all of the earnings that you could get off of them. It's just how bonds typically work. They start slowly and then they ramp up at the end.
Yeah.
So SVB had to put in for these 10-year bonds in 2021. And now in 2023, all these companies want their money back. Well, SVB had about $24 billion in readily easy to liquidate assets. And they did that in the initial rush that was starting on, would have been like Thursday, where there's a couple of companies that had some questions as to how liquid SVB was, and they decided to pull their money out. And then that started an old-fashioned bank run where everybody just sort of collectively went, wait, we don't know how banks work, and everybody tried to get their money out at the same time. And for SVB, they have the underlying assets to support those withdrawals, but because of the type of investments that they're currently set up in, it's not something that they can just go out onto the stock market and dump a bunch of stocks.
Yeah.
It requires finding somebody who's willing to buy these bonds or negotiating with the, the person who had the bonds in the first place and going through the process of actually selling these. It takes time. And because this run happened so fast, they literally ran out of money that they could hand out to people who were asking for it. And that's where this bank collapse came in, and where the FDIC has also come into play. Right now, SVB has the underlying assets that they can sell, and they're going to have to sell, in order to fulfill these withdrawals that their customers have placed. And the long-term result of it is that SVB is done at this point. One of the best lines I heard about it was from the WAN show, Linus Tech Tips, and that crew, where they said the Wikipedia page for SVB changed from is to was. And it's apt. SVB as an entity is going to exist long enough for people to get their money back, but it's not going to go past that. The federal government has stepped in. They have basically frozen everything that's happening there and are going to be working to facilitate the sale of the assets SVB has. And long term, people are going to, long term, there's going to be very little impact. In the immediate short term, there are going to be a lot of people who are probably not going to be able to get their payroll done on time. Maybe for a pay period or two. But given that this is primarily the tech sector, that's not nearly as pressing as, like if Walmart couldn't pay their employees. These are generally people who are pretty affluent, people with more financial security than other sectors. So the impact there, even then, isn't as bad as it could be. And even if SVB itself and the federal government can't start to fulfill these needs quickly enough, the other banks are not strangers to this. Washington Mutual, back in 2008, was the last big bank to fail like this, and it has set a lot of groundwork to learn from the mistakes that happened then, and people will be able to get very safe loans from the big four banks in order to secure their payroll in a timely manner, because everybody knows at this point now, they've realized that the assets SVB has are real. They weren't lying about what they had. They just couldn't ship it out fast enough. So it'll just be a long-term process of companies needing to sort of, spin some plates and juggle around balances and loans. But it shouldn't end up being that bad in the long term.
You did a lot of really good research into this.
Yeah.
I respect that
Most
a
of it
lot.
came from one very well written Reddit comment.
God damn.
But no, there's a lot of moving parts here, and it sounds very scary, but the reality is that it's not going to be that bad. And
I
that if you're not in like the heart of the West Coast, like it's called Silicon Valley Bank for a reason, you're not going to experience almost any problems with it. The furthest reaching implications that I heard about it are for Roku, who had about $500 million in their assets tied up there. But even then, that's barely a quarter of their like operating assets, so they'll be fine. A cryptocurrency called Circle apparently had $3 billion with SVB. That is a big question mark at this point because it's caused the underlying cryptocurrency to collapse. But fuck crypto. I don't give a shit.
That's the
And there's a
correct
number
answer.
of and there's a number of payroll companies that used SVB as a sort of a middleman. That's going to mess up some payrolls for some places, but from what I understand, this is like a relatively not an insignificant payroll company that was doing this, but it's not like ADP. They're not going to have, massive implications like you would have from some of these other companies. And they only used SVB as kind of like an intermediary to process these payments. There's nothing that would stop this company from setting up with any other bank and continuing their operations as normal once they get some of this assistance in the form of loans and the federal government starts to step in.
Mm.
So yeah. And today we got the official word from Janet Yellen that there will be no federal bailout for Silicon Valley Bank, which makes sense. A bailout is generally meant to stop the bank collapsing ahead of time, and given that they're already pretty cooked, it wouldn't do a whole lot at this point. So, yeah. FDIC's already got control. People can get their $250,000, which is, I think, very funny. After the Great Depression was largely started because of people like you and me going on bank runs. There was doubt as to whether or not the banks actually had the money that they said they did. People tried to go withdraw all their money at the exact same time, and because of the way banks work, stuff broke. After that, the FDIC was created, where every account owner has their account insured for up to $250,000. And if you're a regular fucking person, that's more than enough to cover any sort of deposits that you would have with a regular bank. But
Correct.
because SVD has so much venture capital and so many of these like mid-sized businesses doing work with them, it didn't matter. The bank run happened all the same because these accounts were so large. It'll be interesting to see over the next couple of years if the FDIC gets either changed to support larger amounts, or if they try to do something else to just prevent this from happening in the future. But it's for now very isolated. It would require, and this is far from outside their own possibility, it would require other banks to be doing even stupider things for this to have further reaching implications. And we haven't seen that yet.
Very good shit.
Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna start knocking them down here.
Let's do
Let's
it.
talk about child labor.
Yes, all the yes. Get them only like on 5 cents an hour? Fucking yes. That's what I'm talking about, my dude. Who knows if they
Yeah.
have any concept of money yet? Let's take advantage of that and get them while they're young.
So Arkansas has put into law a new bill that does two things. It first allows, what was it? Where did it go? Here we go. Children under the age of 16, so this is specifically people who are 14 and 15 years old, because children under the age of 14 are outright not allowed to work in Arkansas still. So 14 and 50-year-olds, 14 and 15-year-olds will no longer have to get the permission from the Division of Labor in order to be employed.
That's a
In
bad.
addition, and this is the part that I am a bit more concerned about, honestly, the state also no longer has to verify the age of those under 16 before they take a job. Which pretty obviously opens the door for people to lie about their age in order to get employment if they're under the age of 14. Yeah, it's not good. This is largely going to uh, this is the kind of change that lets bad actors be worse. There are very real cases where people under the age of 16 would want to get employment, right? Like farm work in particular is big.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to employ the neighbor kids to help out on your farm for a few, a dozen hours a week, these sorts of child labor law exceptions allow that to happen. And that's largely good. But removing these checks to make sure that the people you are hiring are actually children is bad. And it's going to have people take abuse of it. No question. It'll just be a question of, how long it takes for that to happen and how bad it is when it does.
It's gonna be shit. What are you talking about, dude?
Yep. It ain't good.
What I find always so funny about these like deregulation laws is how they always leave the door wide hanging for the worst possible scenario. Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, like, isn't okay? I know they say they're doing this because of farm labor and whatnot, which, whatever. But isn't like most agriculture in America owned by major companies at this point, and not even like local farmers exist that often, like, who need that kind of assistance?
It depends.
Yeah.
In terms of like raw ownership, yeah. But a lot of it ends up having farms that used to be privately owned. The people who used to own them, that sold the farms to these large companies, still work on them the same as they would before. They just aren't the owners of them anymore. So, yes, it is true that large companies are the ones owning them, but they aren't the ones that are going and making sure that the farms they own are being appropriately maintained and complying with, the law.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. And there is still like I know I was a child laborer in high school,
Hey.
I did farm work because it was easy to do and you could hit the hours to do it in the summer no problem. It was a good way to make a few grand. So there's definitely a place for it, but removing these checks were put in place for a reason. So it's not good. It definitely is not good.
So when are we going to get the speed run? Let's see how fast this gets terrible.
I don't know. It'll probably be about a year, I think, because you need to have people actually notice that something's going wrong to happen in the first place, right? It was like that case in one of the Carolinas, I want to say, where there was a restaurant owner that employed a person who was, mentally challenged,
Mm-hmm.
and was paying them well below minimum wage for like 3 decades because
I remember this.
the person
Yeah.
didn't have the mental faculty to understand that they were being fleeced. It's shit like that. This is supposed to stop. Like, if you're a 14-year-old working within the law here, are you smart enough? Are you aware enough to understand if you're being ripped off, that your hours are being recorded correctly? It's messed up.
It really is messed up, but you know what? That's just good old-fashioned character building.
Yeah.
Yep. You gotta get taken advantage in life, Carl, in order to understand what it means to be an adult.
It's certainly not a coincidence that we're also seeing a recent rise in these cases of meatpacking plants hiring children where they weren't supposed to.
Listen here, Carl. No adult in the right mind wants to work at a meat plant.
No one does. In any state of mind.
Listen here, Carl. College is expensive. And by college, I mean alcohol is expensive. And the average teenager does not have money to be buying good alcohol. So they get a job, right, working at my meat plant. And at my meat plant, they meet Richard, who will buy them the alcohol on their shifts for a cut of their pay. You see what I'm putting down here, Mr. Carl?
No.
Yes, you do.
It's a complete coincidence, I'm sure, that the average meatpacking worker only has 9 fingers.
Is that a real statistic?
No, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was. Just dangerous.
I'm looking at this up. Oh shit, meat packers make a very shit salary.
Oh yeah, no, it's awful.
This is shit. Okay, so
It's the
Michigan,
kind of thing where the people who take those jobs don't have other options.
yeah,
They are almost always being exploited in some way.
really it is because like I'm seeing here, 28,945 average salary in Michigan for a meat packer,
Mm-hmm.
and that's number 4 best state. Shit, fam. Wisconsin's got it there. They're just below the poverty level. 31,000.
In other awful news, we need to talk about the. This is the one I didn't tell you the details of this because it is mind-boggling
Yeah, I'm
how
scared.
fucked up this kind of shit is.
I'm scared.
West Virginia passed a child marriage bill that they are generously spinning as a positive thing because it prohibits anyone younger than 16 from getting married.
It prohibits.
It prohibits.
Prohibits.
Um, and it's not like, oh yeah, that's good. People under the age of 16 probably should be getting married, right?
Yes.
Then
I'm
you
waiting
start
for
to
the
read
spin.
into it. You start to read into it more. There's a couple of anecdotes from the senators that initially passed it because the detail that leaves out is that like most states, West Virginia has their sort of Senate and House equivalents, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a bill that started in their house, and the initial bill had that age set at 18.
Go on.
It then went to the Senate, where it was amended down to 16 in order to have it pass.
Can all those senators please be checked real quick? Like, I need a
Oh,
background
we'll
check.
check them. So, where did it go? Um, Putnam County Republican Senator Eric Tarr said he got married in high school at 17 and his first child was born 5 days after graduation.
What the
He
fuck?
said he liked this version of the bill because it protects family.
How does it?
Conway County Republican Senator Mike Stewart said his mother was married at 16 and his parents are still together. Quote, I don't say that with any amount of shame.
That's fine, but dude, like,
Yeah, these people are completely missing the forest for the trees here.
not everybody is your parents. God damn.
Yeah. The bill passed the Senate on a vote of 31-1, with the one voting against it being Democratic Senator Mike Wolfell. Quote, our state has invested a lot of money into improving our national image. Every time we have a debate like this talking about child brides, we add to that negative image. Let's leave it at 18. My God, it's marriage. How in the world can teenagers negotiate a marriage at this point? Marriage is for adults.
Oh my god, is that correct? Is that correct statement?
It sure sounds pretty sensical, but not for West Virginia, I guess.
That really grosses me out.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
Now, is there even like a provision on that bill saying like, they can only marry other people within their age group? Are we talking about like,
Yes, there is. So
oh,
it
thank
also
God.
has a ban of age gaps of more than 4 years for 16 and 17-year-olds.
That still means a 20-year-old can take advantage of a 16-year-old.
Absolutely. But it could be worse.
Bullshit. Okay, you're not wrong.
Yeah, it's not good. But I found the spin on this to be quite amusing.
I don't even think that's a spin. I think those people are generally thinking that's the right thing to do. This is a PSA from the Two Schmoes Show to the whole state of West Virginia.
Yeah.
Please stop.
Please just stop.
Get
You
some
don't
help.
have to do this.
Call your older brother Virginia. Ask what Virginia is doing right now. They might. Well, okay, let me see what their marriage age.
Let's check real quick.
Before I say something stupid.
uh
Yeah.
Oh,
Go
no,
talk.
but Virginia's actually better. They have theirs set at 18.
Yeah. Go talk to your older brother Virginia, West Virginia. Ask them for their advice. They might have the right opinion for you. Remember, West Virginia, just stop.
Yep.
Okay, what's next in the news?
Believe it or not, it gets crazier.
Go on.
Texas has proposed a bill that would. I don't even know how to describe this in a way that is even beginning to not sound biased. They have proposed in a bill a system of, what do they call it? They call it statutory damages. Statutory damages to be paid to someone who sues another person for performing drag in public.
Now, do they define what drag is in that bill?
They do.
Oh, God.
Drag performance means a performance in which a performer exhibits a gender that is different than the performer's gender recorded at birth using clothing, makeup, or other physical markers and sings, lip syncs, dances, or otherwise performs in a lascivious manner before an audience, meaning conduct of a sexual nature that is offensive to community standards of decency.
That's pretty vague.
Yes, it is very vague. Intentionally so. And the result of it is that anybody who sues another person for drag performances that they believe, what was it, are offensive to community standards is awarded $5,000 by this law as a base level of damages. It's the same thing that they did with their anti-abortion bill. And it's basically setting up drag bounty hunters.
Yeah. That's pretty fucked up.
It's really fucked up. And, you know, under a sane person's reading of this law, you could have this be like, okay, sure. It's clearly fucked up, and the idea that this is related to drag performance in the first place is disgusting. That has to be a writer here, but if you can blur that out for a bit and say people performing in a sexual nature in public in violation of community standards is not okay, you can like squint and see the kernel of bullshit that the judges that inevitably rule on this are going to cling to try and justify their unjustifiable opinions. Yeah, it's messed up.
I'm sorry, it's just. This reminds me of the abortion bill in Texas a lot.
Yeah. It's following the same template.
Yeah, it really is. Make verbiage as vague as possible so that if you are offended by something, you can make an arguable case for it. You can shut it down pretty fast.
Yep.
So, if we find
At the very least,
sorry, Yes,
This
good.
is only a proposed bill. It hasn't even been admitted to be heard yet, let alone voted on.
I was really, really hoping you were going to say that it was. Oh, never mind. I lost my thought there.
Yeah,
I'm just
no,
in shock.
it's abhorrent, and thankfully, hopefully, it doesn't go anywhere. But it does, at the very least, show the state that the Republicans are attacking from, where their standards are at.
A lot of these Republican bills are so culture war influence bullshit that really is just there to reinforce their voters, you know? It
Yep.
just, I don't know. If I was the voters and I saw these bills that basically do nothing but they don't do anything politically, it's all cultural bullshit. It's gross because like it's just them sitting on their laurels making a fake moral panic about something they don't really know about, and then they just go and waste taxpayer money writing up a bill saying they're protecting you, but meanwhile you're paying for property taxes that end up going more to fucking businesses that have more property than you do, and it's just it's such bullshit. It's like such a sleight of hand politically to distract people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I hate it. It's just actually scary to me that this gets away with. Gets you know what I mean. People get away with this bullshit.
Yep.
Yes. Speaking of political bullshit that distracts us, what's going on in Michigan?
Michigan is doing good things.
No.
No. Yeah, it's actually pretty cool to see.
You'll love to see it.
All right. Number of things Michigan has done.
Can we rank them?
Three. Yeah.
Welcome to the Michigan tier list.
Yeah. So Michigan, like we talked about, now has the sort of trifecta where we have the governorship as a Democrat, along with majority bodies in both the House and Senate of the state level. With that power, they this week voted to repeal right to work. They have codified LGBTQ rights, and they have expanded gun background checks in the state.
Can we talk about right to work real quick? Because I don't think people really understand that law real quick, like, and what it means. Because
Yeah,
it
I'm
sounds
trying to
real.
find a good definition here.
It sounds
Oh yeah,
really
it's
nice.
great spin, isn't it?
Yeah,
Right to work. You have the right to work.
it's your right to work and get paid for your labor. Don't think about it past that.
Yeah.
It's like the Patriot Act, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
No one wants to say bad things about the Patriot Act. I think I have a definition. Would you like me to try this one?
Please go ahead.
Okay. In context of labor law in the United States, the term right to work laws refer to state laws that prohibit union security agreements between the employer and labor unions, which require employees who are not union members to contribute to the cost of labor union representation. Which basically means no union is safe in a right to work state.
Yep.
And I don't know if y'all know this, but labor unions tend to do pretty well when they're like actually functioning as a political entity in a company.
Yeah, they actually do. There's a reason that the Teamsters and the what is it? Detroit Auto Workers are still around and still so powerful.
Yeah, like
They
seriously.
get shit done.
Labor unions are so effective that they scare the fucking shit out of employers.
Mm-hmm.
That they literally spin out all this anti-labor union propaganda constantly. Um, for example, I used to work at this grocery store. I managed it, and when you manage a grocery store, you get a little like a peek behind the curtain about what our corporate overlords think about unions. And they actually put like scare tactics propaganda up on us all the time, saying that if like, there was any work union like labor efforts, to report them immediately to HR and they'll do something about it, which is fucked up. Um, but they would say stuff like, "You are putting your family at risk if you start doing a Michigan, sorry, not Michigan, labor union, because
Yep.
you're gonna like lose out on money in the end because of costs, which that's not how it
It's not
works.
true.
That's not true
And
at
we
all.
have numbers to back it up that
Yeah.
I'll share in the end here. Yeah.
You have like fucking union people are going to strong arm other people and take advantage of the disabled, those who are on, lower income up on the ladder to just line their own pockets, which that's not really true at all. I mean, the pros and cons of unions, there's so many more pros than cons. Like, I'm not going to say a union is perfect because it's just an extra level of bureaucracy into an already bureaucratic system such as like
Mhm.
employment.
Yeah.
But here's the big cool part about it, right? It's bureaucracy that protects you.
Yep.
Yes.
Most bureaucracy actually does, to be truthful. It's just like it's been the perpetual spin, mostly from the right, that it's the small government crap
Yeah.
where they act like any interference is bad interference, even though that's just not true. In Michigan, from I guess nationally, from 2012 to 2021, inflation rose 29%. In Michigan, wages in that same period grew only 12%.
Woo woo.
Mm-hmm.
That's a 17% loss on all of Michigan right there, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. And that's the kind of thing that labor unions negotiate. They try to argue for better wages and better benefits to keep the, their workers competitive and healthy.
Yeah. Again, they work better when, you are working at your best as well. My father, he's a union man. So at a young age, I kind of knew labor unions really do a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially he works for Bradford White. For people who don't know what Bradford White is, it's basically a water heater company, and it's a lot of like skilled labor. You don't need a college degree to go work there. So that union really helps protect a lot of people who may not have the greatest book smarts to like fight in a bureaucratic system. And I've always been grateful to that union because they do a lot of really nice things for their members to make sure they're not taken advantage of by all these people with like fancy college degrees. Because having a degree does matter, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not forget that.
Mm-hmm. In other Michigan news, they also passed they codified LGBTQ rights. So the big thing with this, we saw, I think a year or two ago, the Supreme Court of Michigan ruled that Michigan's current non-discrimination provisions included protections for LGBTQ people. But because this was only a court ruling, it could, in theory, be reversed in the future.
Like
To
Roe v.
prevent
Wade.
that, exactly. To prevent that, the uh, state legislature has passed an amendment to the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act that now explicitly includes protections for sexual orientation and gender identity.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me that my right to work is now in jeopardy and the gay people are on the equal footing as me?
And it's even better than that.
Oh no.
The third big change is that a universal background check for guns has cleared the Michigan House.
Now this I'm excited about. Tell me more. I like my
Anyone
guns.
seeking to purchase a rifle or shotgun would be subject to a criminal background check that could prevent the sale under bills approved late Wednesday by the Democrat-led House.
So by that, do they mean like any criminal record can jeopardize the purchase of a gun, or what is the extent of that? Do they really explain that more?
The big problem right now is that in the state of Michigan currently, the state law requires background check for pistol sales, but not for long guns purchased from private sellers.
So the actual scarier guns you can get easier.
Yes.
Holy shit.
Well, it's that could be up to interpretation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the fact that there was not a check taking place at all to look, like, even if someone's like a felon, right, and can't own a firearm, that check wasn't taking place,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and now it will. This is very much, like the like boilerplate common sense kind of thing. Like, oh, we have laws that say people who have committed certain crimes can't own firearms. Why don't we have some way to check for that and enforce it? No, we wouldn't need that. These good, honest felons will rely by the honor code.
Like, in some way, I'm totally for this because I think we need more background checks on guns in general.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, the only thing that scares me about this, right, is the actual reformed felons. Um, and I like to believe that rehabilitation is a big part of like our prison system. It should be at least.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I do worry about this, like potentially hindering the rights of like
Mm-hmm.
those who are rehabilitated. So
To that end,
yes.
current Attorney General Dana Nessel has been moving a huge push on awareness and limiting the barriers to criminal expungement, and has been putting on large, basically expungement fairs, where if you are a person who has a criminal record and you believe that you qualify, or you want to know if you qualify to have that record expunged and basically no longer be applicable in situations like this or job searches, so it just doesn't come up at all when you're looking for employment, you can go to these expungement fairs, and if you do qualify, you can get it completely removed from your record. So that is absolutely true, but that's the other side of this, is that they're also trying to support that as well.
Good. Yeah. No, what the fuck is the con to all this shit? Why?
Yeah.
Where's
fear monger? It makes it harder to fear monger.
Yeah, it really does. This is like a really exciting time to be a Michigander.
It is.
I'm very proud of our state. Now, when are we going to fix Flint?
Oh boy. That is a good question.
Chiral, there's the start date of the Flint water crisis was in 2014, and I don't see the end date yet. Oh, it was declared ended in 2019. Okay.
I'm sure there are no problems in Flint with their water anymore.
Yeah, it's not like we let the people that got away with it get away with it.
Yeah. The last the big problem with it is that how much of it is in private residences.
Yeah.
And short of what should happen, it should have happened long before this, is some sort of like asbestos abatement type program. We need better lead abatement programs that allow grant money or tax credits or something like that that encourages people to contract with workers to have lead piping removed from their private residences.
That'd be good.
Short of that, it's always going to be a looming risk in these old houses.
Yeah, it really is kind of shitty.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Even asbestos is a huge problem. My old church in Battle Creek, they had lightning strike their steeple and caused fire damage to their roof. And it, because of the age of the building, and the type of construction that had happened when it had been re-roofed in the past, generally they just shingled over the old roof, the old shingles, right? Because it's a lot of work and exposes it to potential water damage to remove the old shingles entirely. So you just add another layer on top. But because of the time period, those old shingles were made of asbestos, and they didn't know that.
Oh.
So they had this fire happen. They got their insurance company out there to give a quote for, how much is it going to cost to repair the roof, and they would figure it would be expensive, but not unreasonable. And because of how the law had changed, when they identified that there were these old asbestos tiles, they could not work on it until those asbestos tiles were removed. And it cost a shitload of money to have it happen. That was thankfully almost entirely covered through grants and insurance. But if it hadn't, like if it was a private residence instead of a public place of worship,
yeah,
and they hadn't qualified for those grants and those specific loans that they got, it would have been like another $100,000 to get this shit removed, because it's all highly specialized and higher risk work.
Jesus.
Yeah. Asbestos, lead, they're incredibly effective materials until you have to deal with them 50 years down the line when they're killing everyone.
Well, that's the next generation's problem.
Mm-hmm. I was actually watching a really interesting video about a couple of guys working on an old car, and apparently, it was the fucking 80s. They made the clutch for the car using asbestos pads.
No.
So they're going into this old clutch, and it's all messed up and chewed up, and it's just filthy, and all of the little fine dust that's on everything is asbestos dust that they now have to try to wash off to fix this thing. It's messed up.
You're
It was
making me
just
actually scared
so
about my house
pervasive.
right now.
Oh, it is very scary. Yeah. Uh, here's here's another one for you. A lot of floor tiles have asbestos in them from that time period because it's a fire retardant. So, at same church, in the basement of that area that was renovated at the time, they also had asbestos floor tiles. And if any tile cracked after we were aware of the problem, you couldn't just like pick up the broken pieces and throw it away because it's full of asbestos. It turns into a whole fucking problem.
We really fucked ourselves up with that.
Yeah. Don't get me started on the cleaning agents we use too. Oh boy.
What you talking about, Willis?
The ozone is only just starting to repair. Think about what it did to our bodies.
You see, my body is not the ozone, though.
Mm.
Fuck. Really, we're just all going to die young, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
More and more. In good news, though, because we do have one more good news from Michigan. Part of Whitmer's new proposed budget allows funding to include breakfast and lunch at no cost for all Michigan public school students.
That is so fucking huge.
It really is.
Kids.
It's
Yeah.
can't be understated. Just guaranteeing during school that kids will have 2 meals in a day is, poverty and hunger are still very real problems. And for at least 9 months out of the year, this pretty much eliminates it for children in the state.
That's going to help so much. I know it's probably not going to be the best lunches in the world, but holy shit, dude.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's compared to nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather have the peanut butter and jelly crustless Smuckers in a little package, or air?
Uncrustables.
The
Uncrustables.
I forgot the brand name.
Honestly, they kind of slap.
Frozen? Yes.
Okay, yes, that's fair. Yes, that is a good differentiator. Yeah.
Yeah. They get super chewy when they're frozen. Fucking
Yeah.
best thing in the world.
Yeah.
I'm hungry now. Look what you've done to me. I've been getting into cheeses lately.
Oh yeah.
I've like 4 fancy cheeses in my fridge right now, and I'm kind of tempted to go grab one.
Cheese is good.
Yeah. I am a white person.
Oh. All right. I'm actually going to read through this whole proposed budget because this is like so much good shit in here.
Go on, hit us.
This is the highest per student investment in Michigan history for the 5th year in a row without raising taxes.
Without raising
taxes. It includes $900 million deposit into a new rainy day fund for schools, funds set aside for future budgetary needs, ensuring the long-term financial stability of the state's public education system. $614 million to support school operations with a 5% increase in the base per pupil that equates to an additional $458 per student, total of $9,600 per student. $318 million for school safety programs, building off existing school safety grant opportunities for districts and implementing cross-sector approaches to prevent mass violence through partnerships between schools, public safety, mental health professionals, and communities.
Mental health professionals in my school?
What are those? It's more likely than you think. $442 million to help students reach their full academic potential, including expansion of existing payments for literacy grants and literacy coaches. $300 million for tutoring through the MI Kids Back on Track program, $300 million to continue historic investments for student mental health to ensure students' needs can be identified and provided with the right support, $257 million towards the goal of offering universal preschool to all of Michigan's 4-year-olds, putting all children on the path to a brighter future, $195 million in recognition of the crucial role high quality teachers play in the success of their students, including continued support for the MI Future Educators program and funds to retain and develop existing teachers through mentorship programs. $160 million to help students by providing free breakfast and lunch to all of Michigan's 1.4 million public school students. That's how fucking far down this list of budget that option is.
And it also
$150 million to fund matching grants for school districts to modernize their bus fleet by switching to electric vehicles. $120 million in various educator supports, including continuation of the MI Future Educator Fellowship, student teacher stipends, and professional development. $94 million for literacy-related programs and activities in Detroit's public schools. $80 million to continue expanding support for special education students, a 12.5% increase in their current allocation. 5% increase to $66 million in providing funding to support academically at-risk students, English language learners, and students in rural school districts. $65 million for increase to a total of $812 million total in funding for academically at-risk, economically disadvantaged students. $30 million supporting new math intervention programs. $25 million for additional supports for vocational education and career and technical education equipment upgrades, and $4 million to establish the Nature Awaits program, providing every Michigan fourth grader with a free field trip to a state park.
Holy shit.
That budget proposal fucking slaps.
But where's my school choice vouchers?
They're still around. People can still fucking do that.
But, Chiral, it should be mandatory for everybody. Betsy DeVos said so. God, I can imagine Betsy DeVos reading that and like, pulling her hair out. That is going to give her a seizure. I don't know anything else that could ruin her day more than that budget.
Man, I hope so.
For those of you who do not know, Michigan was at risk for a time with Betsy DeVos trying to shove down these school choice vouchers down our throats, which are basically like you can control where your tax dollars go to fund a school. And a lot of that was aimed at going towards private schools, which are already getting adequate funding instead of public schools. It was basically allocating money from schools that need the funding to schools that don't need the funding.
Mm-hmm. God, what are we going to go here? All right. I want to keep on the high vibes, and let's make fun of Square Enix first.
Oh, I like Square Enix, but go on.
Yeah, but they also are still guzzling the NFT game train.
Okay, Square Enix as developers are pretty cool. The company itself,
yes.
Not as cool.
Yosuke Matsuda needs to fuck off.
Yo, go on, King.
Part of a Q&A, he was asked about concerns that the company had in their future growth due to the number of major releases they were having in 2024. To which they responded, major title launches will not be concentrated solely in 2024. We have organized our pipeline so that we will have a good spread of new releases in 2025 and beyond as well. We also hope that you will look forward to the blockchain games we plan to launch in 2024 and thereafter.
What blockchain games are they referring to? How do you make a blockchain game?
I don't think they have actually said what their plan is yet.
Well, that's probably because they do not have a plan, and that was mainly for investors trying to grasp whatever little life there is in the blockchain after fucking hundreds of scams have already proven that investors should probably get the fuck out of there.
Mm-hmm. Sounds about right.
Yeah. What's like the last good game you think they've done recently?
Square Enix?
Yeah, I mean,
well, you absolutely have to give them credit for Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that.
In terms of truly new releases, like excluding the Final Fantasy VII remake, right?
Well, that's a remake. It's more a
Because it's a
reimagining.
remake.
Yeah.
It's, to be fair to the developers working on it, it is absolute from the ground up kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, let me skim. Oh, that banger of a release this year, Forspoken. Everyone's talking about it.
Yo, what is up with that game? I've never heard anything about it, but I know
It
everybody makes fun of
is
it.
bad. It's just a not good game. It is unoriginal. It has cringeworthy dialogue. It is just not good, and they spent way too much money on it.
I do not know anything else about this game. What do you mean by cringy dialogue? Please tell me more.
It's. Have you seen the trailer for it?
No.
I will find the trailer for it and I'll send it to you,
Oh,
and you'll
no.
go, oh. It was literally from the first trailer. Everybody was just kind of like, because there's people who were excited for it before that, because it's like an interesting idea. You know, it's just like a fantasy thing. You have like powers and shit. You know, whatever. It doesn't need to be that complex, right? But the main character just doesn't shut up and says the stupidest things ever.
How stupid are we talking about? Like Rick and Morty kind of stupid, or
No, like I'm trying to think of the name. Oh, what's it called? The fucking time game. I can't remember what it's called. Time game. I should know what it is, but I can't remember the name of it because it was just like it did well. People liked it. But it's like the very, very Tumblr-esque dialogue kind of thing, right? You know what I mean when I say that?
yeah,
Where
Tumblr
it's like
has a
not
very strange way.
it's not inherently bad, but it is inherently cringe. It's not cool. That's the best way I can think to describe it.
Interesting.
It is very surprising. I'm going back through the Square Enix game releases here, and it is crazy how much chaff they have. So technically, they had Octopath Traveler 2,
Mm-hmm.
which
Okay,
is
that looks
fine.
good. Uh,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm an RPG guy. I'm going to be a little biased.
They only published it though,
Yeah,
I believe.
I believe it was an in-studio house that they published for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm personally curious about the last Square game that they actually developed.
I want to say it's Dragon Quest XI because
They had
touched much.
Tactics Ogre Reborn,
That's a remake.
Chrono Cross: The Radical Dreamers Edition.
Another
I
remake.
believe that's the remake. Dungeon Encounters.
Wonder what that's about.
I have never heard of it. It's a role-playing game. Who would have guessed? Yeah, I've never heard about it. It is apparently okay. What else do we have here? Neo, The World Ends With You. I've actually heard good stuff about that.
Okay.
So they co-developed it, but they did do development for it. Is Squaresoft, so not quite the same. We'll skip those. Collection of Saga, Final Fantasy Legend.
Sure. Whatever that means.
I have never heard of it. Trials of Mana, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Romancing Saga 3.
I feel like they're just doing a lot of remakes, man.
That is a remake. Dragon Quest 11S.
Yo, that's a special edition.
That's
of it already.
legit.
Yeah.
But like, Dragon Quest 11 was good.
It was good. I played it. It's one of my more favorite Dragon Quest.
Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon Everybody.
Everybody Wang Chung tonight?
And Kingdom Hearts 3. So I think it's fair to say Kingdom Hearts 3 was the last original, universally well-received Square Enix game.
like brand new, not based off
Yes.
any pre-existing games.
Well, I mean, it's a sequel, of course, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Original, not a re-release, not a special edition,
Correct.
not a spin-off
Correct.
of another game, not like a DLC. It is entirely its own thing. That was 2019.
So 4 years without a brand new release.
That has hit the level of success that we would expect from Square. Yeah.
Yeah. Even then, I heard Kingdom Hearts 3 was very mixed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was very much Kingdom Hearts, but it was not exactly revolutionary.
Darn.
They definitely have their pockets in a lot of stuff, though.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I'm just hoping this doesn't ruin Dragon Quest 12 when it comes out.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, they still have Final Fantasy 16 coming this year.
Okay, I'll believe that when I see it.
The second half to Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth.
Okay.
And TBA, both Dragon Quest 12 and Kingdom Hearts 4.
Okay, they announced 12, but that was like a while back.
Mm-hmm. And it has no date.
Great.
So yeah, they're doing great.
I think they're doing just absolutely super. Can't wait to see Dragon Quest 12 on the blockchain.
I am really I want to see what they come up with, right? A part of me wants someone to make a good crypto NFT blockchain game just to prove that it can be done.
I
To
have an
give
idea.
all of the unoriginal crypto bros like a template that they can follow so that they can make a good game too. Because they suck at making their own games. So maybe if someone can do it for them, they can just start to copy that.
So, you want to hear my idea for a crypto game?
Please.
Okay. So, Animal Crossing, right? And imagine
It
if
is
you,
a thing.
it is indeed a thing. Imagine, if you will, an Animal Crossing game-esque game where your save data is basically located on a blockchain as well, and that would allow you to transfer your progress to various updates of the game, and that would allow you to be able to have like a better access. It's almost like a cloud at this point, really, more than its actual blockchain. But
Yeah, so that's always the problem. And I'm gonna press you on this though, because it's just like, why not just use cloud storage?
here's why you don't use cloud storage, right?
What are you gonna do with the blockchain that Fable didn't do back in like 2003? That's my question.
Now this is going to get where it's really stupid, and this is why I only think Animal Crossing can do this, right? An Animal Crossing-esque game.
Right.
So part of the uniqueness of Animal Crossing is you can do a lot of the stuff yourself and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where your spot on the blockchain comes in. You make your own NFTs that can be shared with other towns through the blockchain in the game. So you would be able to make something in the game, like a painting or something, and then your friends could use that NFT link to that spot on the blockchain where your town is to be able to pull that, and then it can have like an artist signature on there saying that this is a work done by you. Here's the link if you would like to add it to your town.
Don't the QR code thing that they have do that anyways?
Does it?
I don't. I genuinely don't know.
It's been a hot
All I
minute.
know is that I've seen people post Animal Crossing stuff with like a QR code that you can scan to get the recipe for how to make it yourself.
That's actually true too. I'm just saying, yes, this technology is already done, but I'm not saying that the blockchain's actually like fucking unique or anything. The only thing about the blockchain that's unique about it is that there's more ways to monetize it than stuff we already have for fucking free. It's why it's a shitty investment.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this is a good way to make it work. Unfortunately, I don't think there's like any other ideas to really work. You know, I'm not claiming I'm original here. Just an idea.
No, the fundamental problem with anything that ends up on the blockchain is that anything on the blockchain is by definition open source at that point.
Correct.
So if you're doing anything involving multiplayer, that immediately presents a massive vulnerability. If you're doing anything involving real money transactions or that could have the potential to be worked, like if you have just a trading system that uses the blockchain, that presents a very obvious path to create black market real money trading systems, and then you have all of the EU on your ass
I love the EU for
because
doing that.
you've basically just made you've made gambling. Congratulations, go to jail. Um, there is very few use cases where the combination of open source and actually having a viable use case makes any amount of sense.
Yeah.
Because if you're Square Enix, why the hell would you want to give anybody your raw code?
You don't wanna.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't. This is the key thing that I think is great. Under US copyright law, you can't copyright game systems.
That's good.
You can copyright specific brands that are associated with a game system, but if you want to take like Magic the Gathering, and we've seen this, the big instance with this was actually with Dungeons and Dragons, and just strip all of WotC's branding off of it, you can keep everything exactly the same as it is, and there's not shit that they can do to stop you, because that's just how copyright works. You can't copyright ideas, you know? You have to copyright things, property.
Yeah.
Ideas cannot be held in private. That's counterintuitive to how our world works.
Well, I also just argue that's the only thing perpetuating. Never mind. That it's not a good example. Fuck that. Fuck that. Okay. I was going to make some argument about capitalism and innovation, but then I remember we're recycling the same movie over and over again at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Elon Musk, because
What about him?
most of I've been intentionally avoiding it because I don't like talking about him, but I find this to be very amusing.
Oh, we're
where he
talking about the
fully got
incident. Yeah.
We're talking about the incident, yes, where he
goofed.
God, where is the beginning of this? I have to find the beginning of this.
I think. Oh fuck! No, it's buried in my messages. I had the exact link to the thread at one point.
It's so buried, man.
Let me start with a little bit of the story of it for everybody while
Please
you're
go
looking
ahead.
for it.
I'm gonna see if I can find it.
It's a Sunday night. You try to log into work, your work computer at home, to be exact, and you find that your credentials are gone. You can't get into your work computer. Now, if you're the average Twitter user, you kind of know the story of where I'm coming with this. But still, this is the story about how one man took a stand. And by a stand, I mean made a public fit. I hate being sick. This is this man who worked for Twitter, obviously, because who else gets fired by not being able to log into their computer instead of a proper pink slip notice? Goes onto Twitter and tweets out to our Lord and Savior, Mr. Musk, obviously. He goes up to the great Elon and he says, Mr. Musk, am I fired? Would you please let me know if I'm fired? HR is not answering me. Please let me know if I'm fired.
I have to pause for a second because this is the employee here put together a sort of like after the fact thread just summarizing everything that happened.
Oh, hell yeah.
And he said, after no straight answers on my employment status, I asked at Elon Musk to tell me if I had been laid off. He sort of replied.
That's so funny.
That's excellent. Please continue.
Yes. So our friend here, what was his Twitter name? Because this man deserves some follows.
At I am Heralder.
Heralder.
Goes by Hallie.
Hallie goes up on Twitter and starts tweeting out to Elon in this very massive thread of, hey, am I fired? Please let me know if I'm fired. I would like to know if I can move on to another job if I am fired. Elon takes this as an open invitation to start belittling this man and his contributions to his fucking company in front of the whole fucking world, essentially. And Elon starts belittling him, saying Pixar didn't happen, you contribute nothing. Am I forgetting anything?
His first response, literally the first thing he said in response was, "What work have you been doing?"
Yeah. And then he's like, Pixar didn't happen. In which case he's like, yeah, I would be happy to provide some pictures of the work I do, but you fucking kicked me out of my computer and I can't get it. Which, isn't that a little convenient, huh?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Elon then goes on, because like some people, out of the goodness of their hearts, are defending this guy, as they should. Because I don't think anybody deserves to be belittled by their fucking employer in the middle of the fucking public forum of the internet. And what does Elon say about this guy? He's just the worst. He gets nothing done.
Let me find it over here.
Yeah.
Um, he literally did say "pix" or it didn't happen.
Yeah.
The reality is that this guy, who was independently wealthy, did no actual work, claimed as his an excuse that he had a disability that prevented him from typing, yet was simultaneously tweaking up a storm. Can't say I have a lot of respect for that. This is Elon fucking Musk trying to bash somebody who is, in his words, independently wealthy and doing no actual work. And he can't see the irony in it.
You, you did you expect that? Like, come on, man.
It is incredibly stupid, and I am so glad that Elon got backed into such a corner with this.
Yes, because well, wasn't there a HIPAA violation somewhere in there because he told like this guy had a disability or something like that?
Not exactly. There's not HIPAA problems.
Okay.
It's this person has a disability. His accommodations were being met by Twitter up until this point, and then Elon Musk took over, and those accommodations were no longer being met. And I
Mm.
don't believe that's a HIPAA. It's just like
Asshole.
generally, yeah, it's just how disability stuff works.
Yeah.
So I have it pulled up here. The gist of it is that Hallie on March 6th said, Elon Musk, 9 days ago, the access to my work computer was cut along with about 200 other Twitter employees. However, your head of HR is not able to confirm if I am an employee or not. You've not answered my emails. Maybe if enough people retweet, you'll answer me here. Also tweeted Jack Dorsey, I think, along with two other Twitter investors. And this is like in the initial tweet, he says, like, so there's no question about this. My company was acquired on your watch, and I joined because I believed in what you're building. Let's see if they actually live by that motto now that Twitter is cutting acquired founders with no communication. And then, Elon, what have you been doing? I would need to break confidentiality to answer this question. If you have your lawyer share in writing that I can do that, I'd be happy to discuss. Elon says, go ahead. So he does. He lays out everything that he did. And we'll get to some of the Elon stands that are just like going to town. It's pretty great. But the gist of it works out that the replies says what he's doing, and Elon's response was level up from what design to what Pixar. It didn't happen. We haven't hired design roles in 4 months. What changes did you make to help with the youths? It's just genuinely being shitty as all get out. And then he responded to someone else with that the reality is that this independently wealthy guy did no actual work. To which some other person says, as someone who has worked with them during a turnaround, this is super disappointing to see. Not only is his worth ethic next level, his talent and humility are world class. Exactly the kind of person you want on your team when the odds are stacked. I feel certain there's a deep misunderstanding in here of did no actual work, which is apparently what it took for Elon to just call the fucking guy, and they figured it out.
What a dumbass.
What an absolute asshole. Grade A.
Like, that is just straight up, I automatically assume I'm right. I'm so certain I'm right. Oh shit, I just fucked up.
So, following all of that, we got this great thread from Hallie. Following long threaded back and forth replies on Twitter is a bit complicated, so let me give you the highlights. After no straight answers on my employment status for 9 days, I asked at Elon Musk to tell me if I'd been laid off. He sort of replied. He asked me what I'd been working on. When I told him, he laughed, which, to be fair, I get. I am quite funny. Then, all of a sudden, Twitter's head of HR, who had previously twice been unable to tell me if I had a job or not, emailed and said I was no longer employed, which is totally okay, and it happens all the time. Companies let people go, that's within their rights. They usually tell people about it, but that's seemingly the optional part at Twitter now. But okay, fair enough. I've been laid off and I'm okay with that. Next up, though, is finding out if Twitter will pay me what they owe me per my contract, or will Elon Musk, one of the richest people in the world, try to avoid paying? Stay tuned. That stems from Hallie having been, like he implied before, one of the founding investor kind of thing with Twitter.
Yeah.
Per his contract of employment, if the just that I understand is that if he was to be, fired, basically, he would get for any lack of any better word, $100 million golden parachute.
Okay.
And I'm sure it's a complete coincidence that after that came up, Elon pretty quickly changed his tune, and this person is now working and staying with Twitter.
Very nice, very nice, very nice. I love a happy ending.
It's wild.
Did you forget the detail about where he openly admits that he has a loving family in front of Elon just to fuck with him?
I did not. I didn't hear that.
Oh yeah, there's like a tweet where
That's
he's like,
good.
yeah, where he admits like, yeah, can't wait to go fucking home. I tell my wife, who I love very much, to the most divorced man on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I want to go through a couple of really great pieces over here.
Go on.
Really quick.
Yeah.
One of them is that just these absolute chodes that suck up to Elon. Hallie had his. Now the next question is, will you make sure I get paid what I'm owed per my contract? Larry Who 89 said that's for HR to answer. Elon just wants to know your usefulness and if he should keep you. The way you question shows that you aren't interested in keeping the job.
What are you trying to get? Are you expecting Elon's going to give you a job on Twitter just because you're sucking up to him?
These people seem to act like that.
I don't understand why people would do such a thing. Like,
it really doesn't make sense.
Really doesn't.
My favorite thing is that the Twitter has the sort of like misinformation bubble thing where it adds extra context for certain tweets. Somebody, I'm sure it was complete coincidence, added one of those to Elon's "the reality is that this guy who is independently wealthy did no work" thing. The added context being that he backed way the fuck up and was completely wrong.
Good.
It's hilarious.
I love it when Twitter decides to dogpile on him.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I found this guy's last name. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like I'm gonna see if I can it's apparently Icelandic.
Okay.
And it uses a character that I don't know how it's pronounced.
Oh, a new character.
I put it in the chat there. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Huh. That is a new one.
It's apparently like a TH sound.
Okay.
So
Thorleifsson.
Thorleifsson.
Yeah, something like that.
This is amazing. This is Iceland Review article from January 2nd, 2023, so about 3 months ago. Harold Thorleifsson sweeps Person of the Year awards.
This man won a Person of the Year award?
He not just won, he swept them.
I can't help but feel like Elon would be a little upset about that.
Halley, a 45-year-old designer, gained nationwide recognition this year when, after the sale of his tech company Uno to Twitter, he chose to be paid the sale price as wages. Normally, in such large sale, the payment comes in the form of stock or other financial instruments which categorize the sales capital gains, meaning it is taxed at a much lower rate. Halley, however, gladly paid the higher tax rate, having spoken publicly on many occasions about the benefits he has received from the Icelandic social system. Halley was born with muscular dystrophy and came from a working class background. In statements about his decision to pay back into the Icelandic social system, he cited both healthcare and education in Iceland as keys to his success. Notably, he was one of the highest taxpayers in the nation after the sale of Uno.
What a Chad.
What a great person.
That is unheard of.
It is Elon Musk. It is like impressive how much of a piece of shit he is that he manages to find the literal winner of Person of the Year award and try to shit on them. You like can't make this shit up. It's so absurd.
It's so crazy to me that, like, out of all the people he could have punched down on, he punches down on Person of the Year.
Yes. Absolutely wild.
And he, like, knows who this person is, because he says, like, he did no work, and he's like, he's just the worst. And very clearly, he knows this person.
Well, I think the answer is that he clearly didn't. He had no idea who this person was, and was just talking out of his ass like he always does, until his lawyers got up on the phone and was like, please stop.
Oh my god, he needs to hire a PR department at this point, man.
It would be a shame if he fired his PR department.
What are you talking about? Everybody loves me. Here.
Twitter had a PR department, and then he fired them when he took over.
I'm talking about him as a person, but you're right.
Yeah.
He would just fire them.
If we don't have anything more there, and to be fair, I might have missed some beats. I want to talk about some The Last of Us stuff as we come up to the series finale tonight.
Hell yeah. Well, the season finale.
So, yes, season finale. Yes. To start, I just want to know your thoughts. We got 2 episodes to cover.
So the first one that we had to cover, the DLC storyline, as I understand it. I enjoyed Ellie Bueller's Day Off. It was a very fun episode up until the point where they showed that clicker in there, or what? And I'm like, oh, I know exactly where this is going now. Thanks, gang.
Yeah.
Like, I get it, Chekhov's gun and whatnot, but like,
yeah,
come on, man. Come on. We all know where it's going after we saw the clicker. You couldn't just save it for a little bit longer.
Yep.
Other than that, I thought it was a perfectly good episode. I really like
enjoyed it.
The character drama of this show in the sense that it shows what we lost in this show with like humanity going through the apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows how people will like still have those connections. I think that's the thesis of The Last of Us, at least. Especially
more or less, yeah.
Yeah. Especially in episodes like Bill and Frank, now Ellie and what was her name in this episode? Her friend? More than a friend?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I'll look it up real quick.
Regardless, Ellie and friend having their little mall date was very cute. And it does provide more context to that Mortal Kombat scene from earlier in the season.
Yeah.
So that's really fucking cool. After that, we had the cannibalism episode. Which I called they were cannibals the moment they said the meat was venison. And I'm like, normal people don't identify what a meat is if like everybody knows what the meat is supposed to be in the first place.
Yeah.
It was very defensive of such a thing. Overall, I did really like the last episode. I think it might be my second favorite up there with Bill and Frank.
I think that it is going to be impossible for any episode to top the Bill and Frank episode, just because it does such a good job of telling us its own story in a way that it's inherently isolated from the rest of it, right?
Yeah, that could
You
literally just
don't
be a short
need
film.
absolutely, and it's phenomenal for that. I do think that in terms of like the story of The Last of Us, because Bill and Frank's story is very much detached from the rest of it.
Hmm.
Um, the most recent episode, episode 8, was by far my favorite.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't perfect for me, but I've been sort of keeping a mental tally of all of the things that I am expecting to happen in, excuse me, each episode based on what happens in the game. You know, the things that I personally really enjoyed in the game that I want to see in each episode.
Hmm.
And this one was very close to perfect. It had by far the two most important things being the confrontation with Ellie and David in the end, and Joel's torturing the two guys from the town to figure out where Ellie was taken. Um,
Yeah, when I saw
those are the big things.
the torture scene, I was like, "Oh shit, this Joel's got fucking fangs all of a sudden. This man's gonna fuck this up."
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then he kind of didn't.
I don't know. I wish they would have gone more into like, yeah, Joel was always a bad dude. And we just never got a chance to see it.
In the game, he goes on a fucking rampage and murders the whole town practically, or at least all the adults.
That's so funny.
He literally, it is, I don't want to say it's my favorite, but it's up there. It is a really good sequence from the way, the perspective of like how The Last of Us elevated storytelling in games. Because it is literally Joel storming up on foot to their town in this blizzard, armed to the fucking teeth, just screaming, "Where is she?" at these people. Because he knows where she is, but he is just like clearly off the deep end with rage. And
That's
he goes and does a murder all the way to the end of the level. And it's very good.
I also really like David as an antagonist.
Mhm.
He is one Nazism away from being the perfect awful human being.
Yeah, credit where it's due. I'm glad they didn't do as much B plot as they did in like Kansas City, but the little bits of extra B plot they had that was just with David and his people really did a lot of good work. Showing, I saw it pointed out after in discussion about it, but showing how little everybody else gets to eat and how much he gets.
Yeah, that's a detail I didn't really think too much
Where
about. Yeah.
everybody gets like this little bowl and he has a huge fucking plate. It's just stuff like that shows how he is like from the very start putting on this air of, I am your religious leader now, when in reality he's just looking for more marks.
Yeah. It's just how do I put this? Like I know we said cannibalism is like a tired trope at this point,
Yeah.
but he was pretty refreshing in his cannibalism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the cannibalism was ironically for them very much just a means to an end. It was not their intention to be cannibals. They are trying to survive, and cannibalism is the easy way for them to do that. And you can tell that a lot of the adults know that it's happening, even if the kids don't. But
Yeah.
it's not like some big cult thing, because they are very clearly trying to hide the fact that they're serving people to the kids.
Yeah.
So I
Um
thought that was really interesting. And then you have the whole pedophile stuff sprinkled on as the real evil shit.
I was actually about to ask, was he a pedo in the source material?
It is, yes, it is
Okay.
not as obvious as they had it in the show here, but uh, it is at the end with the confrontation between him and Ellie. That was very similar in terms of how it was structured and laid out. And there, by the end of it, there's not much question as to what his intentions are.
That's really he's creepy as fuck.
Oh yeah.
Whoever his actor is, I want to give like a big round of
Mm-hmm.
applause because that's an unsettling character.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, I was aware that David was going to be a big entity, like as an antagonist, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize just how fucking weird he is.
Yep.
Yeah. Overall, yeah, I'm glad we got to see a real monster.
Hmm.
My
Me
one
too.
comment, I liked what you said about like Joel going on like a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
I wish we would have gotten that.
Rampage.
Yeah,
I would have liked a little bit more. I had two main criticisms of it.
yeah.
The first one being that we didn't see more from Joel.
Hmm.
I don't think it would have been out of place to see him, just like they clearly want to show how injured he is in the show and try to be realistic about it or whatever. And I kind of hate that where it very clearly cripples him, like physically. He is about to fall over all the fucking time,
Hmm.
and that kind of sucks. I would have liked to have seen him, you know, get that anger going and put the pain aside to do what he needs to, or just like not have it be so front and center by the end of the episode. Like, it's still fiction. You can have him be hurt really badly an hour ago and now he's fine because it's fiction. That's okay. Um, I've that's been a I want to call it a compliment. Something that people have liked is the sort of like apparent realism of it, and I think that's bullshit. You can have things. It's a zombie apocalypse. You can have a little bit of superhero every once in a while, even if you don't want it to be to the same extreme that the game had, right? And the other part that I was much more, I think, was a loss for the episode is that it ends on a very different note. Where in the game, Joel finds Ellie inside the restaurant while she is hacking away at David, and he has to pull her off of him after he's like already very obviously dead. And it lends it to be a much more powerful scene, seeing the spontaneity of Ellie and Joel, or of Joel's response to trying to, protect Ellie in that moment. And I feel like that was lost a bit by having it be Ellie, by one, having Ellie walking out on her own, and then also having Joel just kind of limping up and trying not to fall over the whole time. It very much neutered the emotions of that scene for me.
So, with tonight being the season finale,
Mm,
do you think we will get to the end of the game today?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Uh, like with every episode up until this point, I hope it's more than an hour, but I'm ready to be disappointed yet again.
How much stuff have they cut out? That would you say, like, from
I
the
mean,
core game?
in terms of major story beats, there's only two or three things that have been completely cut. The problem that I have is that by removing all of like the combat sections, the gameplay heavy sections, you lose the stakes that Ellie and Joel have been going through and the tension that they've been experiencing up until this point. And a lot of their relationship is built bit by bit over the entirety of the period by the small moments they have together. It's not, Ellie caring for Joel to the extent that she does after he gets mortally injured is the culmination of their relationship. In the show, it feels like they kind of just go whoop right to that. And in
Mm.
the game, there's so many small moments where they are just talking and understanding each other, learning about each other, having human conversations that has to get cut out because you don't have that anymore. Like in Left Behind with Ellie and Riley. Her name's Riley.
Riley, that's it.
I noticed the movie theater that they had there. The poster for it is a movie about like some werewolf shit. It's like their fake Twilight because that's about what was that was popular at the time, right? Like early 2000s.
Yeah.
So in the game, there's a bit where Ellie points that out because these posters are everywhere because it was big when the apocalypse happened and billboards aren't exactly a booming industry anymore, so all the old shit's still there. Ellie points it out, and there's a little brief bit where Joel talks about going and seeing it with his daughter. Stuff like that is almost by necessity removed with how they've structured the show. And it makes the foundation of their relationship with one another less important. You lose both Joel physically supporting Ellie by protecting her and committing to this journey by having it be just kind of like major point to major point by cutting out everything in between. And then you also lose a lot of the emotional foundation by having it be just the big things. David and Sam dying, Joel getting injured, meeting Tommy at this place. You know, you have these big moments, but it's the little things that matter just as much, and that's not there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The Last of Us in the video game is very human, almost to a fault, right?
Hmm.
Where the puzzles are moving ladders and moving dumpsters so you can climb over things. They're not elaborate like in, Uncharted. It's very simple, it's very real, and it's very grounded in that. And it gets criticized for that because it is also very simple. Like one puzzle is Ellie can't swim, so move a pallet over that she can stand on so that she can get over this, river spot. It's shit like that that is impeding them from getting to the end of their journey. And it's kind of boring, but so is life. And
C'est la vie.
yeah, that is not there, and it is the worse for it. So I think they can very much get to the end of the series, though. They should. There's no reason they shouldn't. There is, in terms of the larger story beats, they are on track. I just think that they should have been taken more time to get to them up to now. Um, and I really do hope that this is a longer episode, like the first one was. It'll be the worst for it if it's not. And in my mind, I was thinking it through, and I think that I had at least 5 specific moments that I think need to happen, at least 4 that need to happen for this episode to be a success,
Hmm.
with 1 or 2 extra ones that should happen but aren't quite required. If it has less than that, I think it'll, in my mind, it's not going to be an obviously better adaptation of the game story.
So I just looked it up. They have announced the runtime for tonight's episode.
Okay.
You ready for
What is
this?
it? Yes.
It's the shortest one of them all at 43 minutes.
Seriously.
I don't know how the fuck they're planning to conclude this in
No,
43
then
minutes.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
I am not convinced that they'll be able to. Not satisfyingly.
Why the fuck would they make it the shortest?
I don't know. It's been this way through the whole thing. I think that is absolutely the most frustrating thing that I can find. And I've seen so much bad faith discussion when people who are familiar with the game talk about the faults that they have with the show, where people are just like, oh, well, you can't have Joel just go kill hundreds of people. That would be a shitty show. It's like, yeah, obviously. There's a middle ground here. You can have, 5-10 minutes extra every other episode just showing them struggling against the reality of the world that they have, fighting an infected, killing some bandits, you know how do you cross a river if the bridges are gone, right? It's small shit like that where it doesn't need to build up to a larger story. It doesn't have to be part of the larger story, but it gives an excuse to have Ellie and Joel just talk to each other and work together to figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
And we really haven't had that. They're there, they are characters, they are having dialogue and talking with other people, but a number of times we've had of just them on their own figuring things out is very few. They go right from Tess dying because of how the excellent Bill and Frank episode is set up. Because of how it's set up, though, you go right from Tess dying to them meeting Sam and Henry, to Sam and Henry dying, to them meeting Tommy, to Joel then being stuck in bed for 3 episodes. And then you're at the end.
Yeah. So we are back up. Sorry, everybody. That was a brief pause there. Editing magic. So you're angry about the runtime, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just generally frustrated by the things that have been left out, and it feels incomplete.
It could have been a movie and could have been even more incomplete.
I don't know. I almost think I would have rather had that. It's
Really.
hard to say. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the forced constraint that keeping it to under 3 hours would have forced them to do different things and by necessity cut out large sequences. And I almost would have rather had that happen. Like cut out all of like absolutely cut one of the Kansas City episodes, squish those together into one thing and get rid of the B plot, you know? Shit like that.
Yeah, I still don't understand why Rose was there.
Yeah, it does not make sense to me personally. I don't think that the payoff for it was worth it.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I like the zombies in it. Oh, not the. They're infected. I should get the brand names right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I predict.
43 minutes is not enough.
May I give my predictions for this episode?
Please.
I predict Joel and Ellie will find the cure to COVID, and they will use that to cure all the zombies. And
Yes.
there will be magical lights, and everybody will be happy that my parents will get back together. That there will be uh, no more politics in the U.S. We can just run on a pure anarchy system, honor system, and child labor laws will go back to what they should have been. That is my prediction for tonight's episode of The Last of Us. I hope it does not disappoint. Really, I have no expectations. I do not know what's going to happen next.
Without giving away too much, I will say if there's not a fucking giraffe, I'm going to be pissed off.
Oh, I thought that giraffe scene was cut from like an earlier episode.
No, it would be like the first thing of this one.
Okay. Well, let's hope there's a giraffe, shall we? What does a giraffe mean about all this?
You have to wait and find out.
I want to know right now, please. I'm not getting my answer, am I?
Nope.
God damn it. Anything else we have for the Last of Us segment?
No, I don't think so. We do
Okay.
have a few movies though.
Go on about the movies and the
Two,
movers.
to be precise. Actually, I do have one more The Last of Us thing. A fun fact. So tonight is going to be the Oscars as well,
Oh,
which
shit.
we haven't talked about because who really cares,
Who
right?
gives a fuck?
It's the Oscars, but it has raised the question of are people going to watch The Last of Us or are they going to watch the Oscars? Because in terms of viewership, The Last of Us has been wildly popular. The first 5 episodes of The Last of Us had 30 million views on it. The first 5 episodes of House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones sequel, only had 29 million.
My mother, who loves Game of Thrones, is actually gone really attached to The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
This
good.
this
It's
is
a good
wild
story.
to me.
It's like
Yeah.
it is basically a western, right? At its core.
I argue it's samurai. It's lone wolf and cub
Well,
for zombies.
yeah, that's kind of the same thing though. The
Yeah.
western sort of spun off from the same source.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I thought that was absolutely wild. It's really good to see, you know, even if I don't agree with everything in it, I can't deny that has been absolutely effective.
I will agree. It turned me, a guy who knows nothing about The Last of Us, into a Last of Us fan. So
Yeah.
once they put out that Switch port, I'm going to be all over it. I'll tell you what.
Mm. I'll say they have the PC port coming out later this month, and they say it will be lean enough that it will run at a playable resolution and frame rate on the Steam Deck. And if it can, that'll be pretty fucking impressive.
That's kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Can't wait
I
for the
am
mods.
very interested to see that. Yeah.
I want Pedro Pascal like Joel in that game modded in.
It'd be very interesting. Sacrilegious, but interesting.
No, that'd be perfect. What are you talking about, fool?
Then you just don't give him any guns because he never kills any infected.
Yeah, he's just a friend in this. He's misunderstood in the Last of Us HBO series, Kyril. He's not your murder hobo. He's my imaginary dad. Don't take him away from me.
In terms of movies coming out this week,
Yo.
there's really two
Okay.
big ones.
Okay.
We'll talk Scream 6 first, real quickly, because we're already pushing 2 hours. But Scream 6 is apparently good, which is surprising for something that's at its 6th entry. So, yeah. Not a ton of details about it. It's being reviewed overwhelmingly positively. If you like Scream, you'll probably like. If you probably just like horror in general, you probably don't even have to like the Scream stuff in particular. It seems like it's doing quite well, though.
Don't let your screams be dreams.
Mm.
There you go.
One that I'm interested in, that I was really hoping there'd be like something more to it. We got 65, the Adam Driver science fiction movie.
That is so corny. I hope it's like so bad it's good.
It is apparently so bad it's just bad.
No.
It's apparently boring.
No.
I wanted there to be like, because like the original trailer sort of gave away the whole point of it, that the 65 is that they have gone 65 million years into the past. And from what I was seeing, there's apparently just like not another level to it. That's just it.
Adam Driver in Jurassic Park without the park.
Yeah. Not schlocky enough to be so bad it's good, and nowhere near good enough to be taken even a tiny bit seriously.
That's upsetting. Oh, I do have an interesting little bit of personal news, by the way.
What's up?
So I've discovered the world of clearance for professional suits.
Oh no.
Can I share a receipt of my purchases yesterday?
Sure.
I got two very nice suits. One is a top coat. One is like a denim style suit. And I got them for about $60 each. Well, sorry, $60 together.
It's really good.
Yeah, look at the receipt I'm sending over right now at that total discount.
Yes. Yeah.
$320 saved, baby.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I feel fancy. I want to wear them around my house, to be honest. I need to justify these things right now.
Mm-hmm.
So 65. Why the fuck did they name it 65, by the way?
So the idea is that it's Adam Driver and someone else are on the spaceship that crashes onto an unknown planet. And that unknown planet is actually Earth 65 million years ago.
Lame.
So there's dinosaurs and shit.
It sounds like it wants to be a Pikmin movie.
Well, the big thing for me is that like if that's your big twist with it, why give that away in the trailer? That's why I kept thinking, oh well, if they're giving away the whole point of the movie that early, there has to be something else, and there's just not.
Yeah.
It's like you know what's gonna happen before it even starts. So, yeah.
So when does he get the Force?
You have to watch and find out.
Oh, okay. That's the twist, right? It's a Star Wars prequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. This is how Kylo went dark, right?
Something like that.
Anything else we have for today's show?
That's all I have.
Okay, then. Well, I'm the Miss Orion, and I am going to wear my fancy suits out today.
And I'm Kyril, and I'm not, because they probably wouldn't fit me.
You'd be surprised. I have like somewhat broad shoulders from all the working out I do lately, and My chest went up a couple sizes from when I last did a suit fitting.
Well, sure, but I'm also fat.
You're not fat, Kyril. You're not fat. You are a schmo.
Yes, I am.